The first sign of trouble was the sky itself. Across Earth's major cities, faint glimmers of light darted between the stars, too quick and deliberate to be meteors. By the time the lights coalesced into shapes, it was clear that this wasn't natural, it was a visitation. Alien ships, angular and unnervingly quiet, descended in eerie synchronization, blotting out the horizon like harbingers of cosmic judgment. Inside the United Nations Assembly Hall, tension was palpable. The world's leaders had assembled in record time, their anxious murmurs punctuated by the hum of hurried translators. Moments later, the Zorthaxian delegation materialized in the center of the chamber. The aliens were imposing, standing at least 7 feet tall, with glistening insectoid exoskeletons that shimmered faintly under the fluorescent lights. Their multifaceted eyes reflected the room, creating a disorienting kaleidoscope of human faces. The leader, a being who introduced himself as Major Thalox, took a deliberate step forward, his presence commanding. His voice, translated through a flawless, resonant device, oozed disdain. "We, the Zorthaxian High Command, have deemed it necessary to assess the combat readiness of your species. Primitive civilizations often overestimate their capabilities. It is our duty to educate." "Combat readiness," President Lin echoed, her brow furrowed. "We're not at war with you." "Not yet," Thalox replied with a flick of his claw. "This is merely an evaluation. Should you fail, however, annihilation would be the logical course of action to ensure galactic stability." The room erupted into outrage, but the Zorthaxian leader remained unflinching, as though he had seen this reaction countless times before. Tyler Ward watched from the edge of the room, arms crossed. A wiry man in his early 40s, he was Earth's best hope in moments like this, a decorated military tactician and reluctant diplomat. His unkempt hair and sharp green eyes betrayed an expression that said, "Seriously?
Again?"
"Let me get this straight," Tyler muttered as he leaned toward General Hartman, seated beside him. "These guys are galactic critics? They just show up, grade our homework, and threaten to nuke us if we flunk." Hartman grunted in agreement. "They're known for dismantling civilizations. Always start with some high and mighty assessment. What's worse, they've never failed one." "Fantastic," Tyler muttered. Thalox's voice cut through the commotion. "To prove your inadequacy, we have arranged a simulation. Our forces will face yours on neutral ground, employing your quaint tactics. The objective is straightforward: capture the opponent's base. This is not optional." Tyler stood and straightened his jacket. "What's the prize for winning?" Thalox tilted his head, clearly amused. "Winning? You misunderstand, Commander Ward. Your species cannot win. The purpose of this exercise is to illuminate your deficiencies." Tyler folded his arms, staring at the alien with practiced nonchalance. "Well, Thalox, maybe we'll surprise you." The Zorthaxian leader clicked his mandibles in a gesture that might have been laughter. "Amusing. You may begin preparations immediately. Our standards are high, but at least you will perish knowing the limits of your kind." The simulated battlefield was located aboard a massive Zorthaxian vessel, an expanse of holographic terrain so realistic it felt like stepping onto another world. Jagged cliffs, sun-scorched plains, and a crystalline river cutting through the middle made the area both treacherous and deceptively beautiful. Thalox and his advisors watched from an observation deck high above, their expressions smug. The Zorthaxians strutted onto the field like predators who had cornered their prey, their gleaming battle armor reflecting the artificial sun. Plasma rifles hummed with deadly precision, and their automated drones hovered like obedient metallic hornets. On the other side, Tyler surveyed his own ragtag group of soldiers and antiquated Earth equipment. Tanks that had been cutting-edge decades ago sat side by side with hastily retrofitted transports, their armor patched with mismatched plating. The human contingent looked as though they were preparing for a scrapyard derby rather than a galactic engagement. Commander Ward Ava Grant, his young and whip-smart second-in-command, said as she studied the battlefield hologram, "You know we don't stand a chance against this tech, right?" "Not if we play by their rules," Tyler replied, his gaze fixed on the advancing Zorthaxians. "But something tells me their rules are the problem." The battle began with predictable ferocity. Within minutes, the Zorthaxians obliterated Earth's forward defenses. Their drones swarmed like locusts, neutralizing human vehicles with frightening precision. The ground quaked under the relentless assault of plasma strikes, and the Zorthaxians advanced in perfect, unyielding formation. "This is bad," Ava said, her voice taut as she watched the holographic display light up with human losses. "Yeah," Tyler replied, scratching his chin. "Let's see how bad they are at thinking on their feet." He gave the order to retreat into a narrow canyon. The Zorthaxians, seeing this as a desperate retreat, followed without hesitation. What they didn't anticipate was Tyler's team detonating pre-placed charges along the canyon walls. Massive boulders tumbled down, crushing entire platoons of mechanized infantry and sealing off the passage. "Stone Age tactics," Ava asked incredulously. "Hey, work," Tyler said, shrugging. But the Zorthaxians adapted quickly. They deployed their drones to scout ahead, avoiding ambushes and using aerial strikes to clear obstacles. By the third hour, their superior technology began to overwhelm Tyler's team. "You know they're hurting us," Ava said as they studied the map, now dotted with shrinking pockets of human resistance. Tyler grinned. "Yeah, herding us into position." When the time came, Tyler called for a full retreat, ordering every remaining human soldier to abandon their posts and converge on the Zorthaxian base. "It's a suicide run," Ava said, alarmed. "They'll see us coming." "That's the point," Tyler replied. The Zorthaxians, convinced this was a last-ditch act of desperation, pulled their forces back to defend their base. But as they moved to intercept, Tyler's team triggered a series of controlled explosions upstream. "What are they doing?" Thalox barked from the observation deck, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. The answer came as the crystalline river swelled, redirected by the blasts. The water surged toward the Zorthaxian base, sweeping away their fortifications and cutting off their retreat. Tyler's forces moved in behind the flood, capturing the base with almost comical ease. When the simulation ended, the humans stood victorious. Tyler crossed his arms, staring up at Thalox in the observation deck. "You cheated," Thalox said, his voice dripping with outrage. "Cheated," Tyler echoed, feigning confusion. "You said the objective was to capture the base, didn't say how." Thalox sputtered, his mandibles twitching. "This is not warfare. Your tactics are irrational, insulting." "Maybe," Tyler replied, smirking, "but they work." The Zorthaxians left Earth shortly afterward, their pride wounded but their intentions unclear. Tyler, for his part, assumed the matter was over. He was wrong. Tyler hadn't even unpacked his gear before Earth's orbital sensors lit up with activity. Deep space radar detected an unmistakable signal the Zorthaxians were back, and this time they weren't playing games. Their fleet was massive, an unyielding wall of sleek, angular vessels advancing toward the solar system. Each ship bristled with weaponry that could pulverize entire cities with a single strike. The message they transmitted left little room for negotiation. Your mockery of galactic warfare has not gone unnoticed. Prepare for annihilation or prove your worth in real combat. There will be no further evaluations. What a delightful development, Tyler muttered as he joined the Emergency War Council. In the war room, Earth's leaders wore expressions ranging from grim determination to outright panic. General Hartman slammed his hand on the table. "This is the escalation we feared. They're bringing their full force, and we're outgunned in every conceivable way." President Lin, ever composed, turned to Tyler. "Commander Ward, you faced them before. What's our move?" Tyler exhaled slowly. "First, we need to figure out what they're bringing. Second, we prepare for the worst. And third, we find a way to turn this into a win." General Hartman scowled. "Commander, the worst is already here. Their fleet outmatches ours in size, speed, and firepower. They're bringing the endgame by default." Tyler leaned back in his chair, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Good. That means they'll underestimate us again." The Zorthaxian fleet halted just outside Earth's orbit, their warships casting menacing shadows over the moon's surface. Their flagship, a monstrous vessel the size of a small continent, hovered at the fleet's center. It dwarfed anything in humanity's arsenal. Once again, the Zorthaxians broadcast their ultimatum. Thalox's voice reverberated across every channel. Humans, your antics on the battlefield are an insult to the art of war. Your victory was a fluke, born of trickery and desperation. This time there will be no games. You will meet us on Mars for full-scale combat. Any attempt to evade this challenge will result in your immediate destruction. Well, that's direct, Ava said as she joined Tyler in the command center. Yet Tyler replied, staring at the holographic display of the Zorthaxian fleet. They're mad. That's good. That's good, Ava repeated, raising an eyebrow. How exactly is that good? Mad means reckless, Tyler explained. Reckless means predictable. We've got one shot to use that against them. The simulated battlefield on Mars was anything but fair. The Zorthaxians deployed with ruthless precision, landing in a coordinated meteor storm of drop pods and automated drones. Within minutes, their forces established a network of heavily fortified positions. The human expeditionary force, by comparison, looked woefully inadequate. Their mismatched vehicles and cobbled-together weaponry seemed laughable against the Zorthaxian war machine. Tyler had insisted on holding back Earth's most advanced tech, keeping it hidden in reserve, a decision that baffled and frustrated the other generals. This is going to look bad, Ava muttered as their troops dug into a series of crude trenches. It's supposed to, Tyler replied with a smirk. The Zorthaxians struck first, their plasma cannons cutting through human defenses like paper. Drones swarmed the battlefield, their synchronized movements a testament to Zorthaxian efficiency. Thalox observed from a command vessel in low orbit, watching the carnage unfold with satisfaction. This is the inevitable result of strength meeting weakness, he declared to his advisors. They rely on chaos and improvisation. We will crush them with discipline and firepower. But as the Zorthaxians pushed deeper into human territory, their precision began to falter. Tyler's forces had seeded the battlefield with decoys, fake bunkers, phantom signals, and holographic projections. The Zorthaxians wasted valuable resources attacking empty targets, their frustration growing with every misstep. What is this nonsense? Thalox growled as reports of missing troops and sabotaged equipment flooded in. How are they evading us? They're not evading, one of his advisors said grimly. They're leading us. Tyler's team operated like ghosts, striking at supply lines and vanishing before the Zorthaxians could respond. They hijacked drones, turned Zorthaxian weaponry against its owners, and laid traps so elaborate they bordered on absurd. In one instance, they lured an entire Zorthaxian regiment into a canyon, only to collapse the walls with a series of well-placed charges. What's the status? Tyler asked as Ava monitored the chaos from their hidden command center. They're frustrated, Ava replied. Their movements are getting sloppy. Good, Tyler said. Sloppy means vulnerable. But as the battle raged on, the Zorthaxians began to regain their footing. Their drones adapted to Tyler's tactics, and their troops pushed forward with relentless aggression. By the 6th hour, the balance of power was shifting back in the Zorthaxians' favor. We're losing ground, Ava said, her voice tense. I know, Tyler replied. Time for Plan Z. Plan Z, Ava repeated, alarmed. Sir, we didn't discuss a Plan Z. Because it's not a plan, Tyler said, grinning. It's an improvisation. Tyler's forces began a calculated retreat, drawing the Zorthaxians toward a seemingly abandoned human base. Thalox, convinced this was humanity's last stand, ordered his troops to converge on the position. As the Zorthaxians approached, Tyler triggered the final phase of his strategy. Using explosives planted weeks in advance, his team redirected a nearby Martian river. The surge of water swept across the battlefield, flooding the Zorthaxian positions and cutting off their supply lines. Unbelievable, Thalox hissed as he watched his troops flounder in the artificial deluge. They're using the terrain against us. Moments later, Tyler's forces launched their counterattack, exploiting the chaos to seize the Zorthaxian command post. When the dust settled, humanity stood victorious once again. Back on Earth, celebrations were tempered by the knowledge that this wouldn't be the end. Tyler, however, remained optimistic. "They'll be back," Ava said as they debriefed in the command center. "Of course they will," Tyler replied. "And we'll be ready. Because if there's one thing humans do better than anyone else." He glanced at the holographic display of Mars, now littered with the remnants of the Zorthaxian assault. "It's adapt." Victory on Mars reverberated across the galaxy. Stories of humanity's unexpected triumphs spread to civilizations far and wide, some marveling at Earth's cunning while others viewed it as a cautionary tale. Among the Zorthaxians, however, it was a disgrace, a humiliation so profound that their high command could not let it stand. Back on Earth, Tyler's brief window of rest was shattered when alarms blared across the global defense network. The Zorthaxians were returning, but this time there were no polite ultimatums or staged simulations. This was war. In the war room, Earth's leaders gathered around a massive holographic display showing the advancing Zorthaxian fleet. The armada was larger than anything Earth had ever faced, with hundreds of capital ships, swarms of smaller attack vessels, and a flagship, the Dominion Spear, that dwarfed them all. "They're done testing us," Ava said, her voice grim as she scanned the data feeds. "This is their endgame. They've got the firepower to reduce Earth to ash," General Hartman growled. "We can't hold them off with the forces we have left." President Lin turned to Tyler, her expression calm but her tone edged with urgency. "Commander Ward, what's the plan?" Tyler rubbed his temple, eyes fixed on the hologram. "First, we need to buy time. Second, we divide and conquer. Third," he grinned faintly, "we turn their size against them." The Zorthaxian fleet entered Earth's orbit with overwhelming force. Their warships eclipsed the sun, casting eerie shadows across the planet below. Almost immediately, they began firing precision plasma strikes at Earth's orbital defenses. Space stations and satellites disintegrated under the onslaught, and the Zorthaxians broadcast their demands. Human Thalax's voice boomed across every frequency, his tone cold and measured. "Your defiance is commendable, but futile. Surrender now, and your planet may survive as a subordinate colony. Resist, and we will leave no trace of your civilization." "Nice speech," Tyler said, leaning back in his chair at Earth's primary command center. He pressed a button to transmit his response. "But we've been through this song and dance before, Thalax. You sure you want to do this again?" Thalax's mandibles twitched with irritation. "You persist in mocking us. This time, Commander Ward, you will not survive to gloat." Tyler's first move was to engage the Zorthaxians in orbit, but not with direct combat. Earth's remaining satellites, many of them old weather monitors and defunct communication arrays, were reprogrammed as kamikaze drones. They hurtled toward the Zorthaxian ships, their explosions causing minimal damage but creating massive clouds of debris. The debris fields disrupted Zorthaxian sensors and forced their fleet into slower, more cautious maneuvers. This gave Earth's fleet a hodgepodge of retrofitted cargo ships, experimental spacecraft, and heavily armed defense platforms time to regroup. "They're too big," Ava said, pointing to the hologram of the Zorthaxian fleet. "Their formations are tight, and their ships are enormous. If we keep hitting them with debris, they'll have to spread out." "Exactly," Tyler said. "And a spread-out fleet is a vulnerable fleet." While Earth's forces played a dangerous game of hit and run in orbit, Tyler prepared his ace in the hole. Hidden among Earth's surviving defense stations was an experimental vessel equipped with advanced electronic warfare systems. Dubbed Wraith, it was capable of infiltrating enemy networks and turning their systems against them. Tyler and Ava boarded the Wraith and launched it under the cover of a large-scale diversion. The rest of Earth's fleet attacked the Zorthaxian armada with everything they had, sacrificing ships to keep the enemy's attention away from Tyler's mission. "Think they've noticed us yet?" Ava asked as the Wraith maneuvered through the debris-laden battlefield. "Not a chance," Tyler replied. "They're too busy swatting flies to notice the mosquito sneaking into their ear." The Wraith infiltrated the Zorthaxian fleet, using stolen access codes to bypass security systems. Once inside the heart of their formation, Tyler and Ava began uploading a virus designed to disrupt the Zorthaxians' rigid command structure. The results were immediate. One Zorthaxian cruiser fired its main cannon at an allied ship, mistaking it for an enemy. Drones turned on their handlers, and command channels filled with garbled, contradictory orders. "What's happening?" Thalox demanded aboard the Dominion Spear, his multifaceted eyes darting between failing systems. "Their virus is spreading," one of his subordinates reported. "We're losing control of key systems." Thalox slammed a claw onto the console. "Find the source and eliminate it." As the Zorthaxian fleet descended further into chaos, Tyler's next move was to disable the Dominion Spear. The massive flagship was the linchpin of the Zorthaxian assault, and without it, their forces would falter. Using the Wraith's cloaking capabilities, Tyler and Ava approached the flagship undetected. They docked with a maintenance port and infiltrated the ship's interior, where they planted explosives in critical systems. "We've got 5 minutes before this thing goes boom," Ava said as they hurried back to the Wraith. "Plenty of time," Tyler replied, grinning. They escaped moments before the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves through the Dominion Spear. The flagship's main reactor failed, and the once mighty vessel drifted powerless in orbit. With their flagship disabled and their fleet in disarray, the Zorthaxians had no choice but to retreat. Thalox, his pride shattered, transmitted a final message as his forces withdrew. "This is not over, humans. You may have won today, but your recklessness will be your undoing." Tyler, watching from the Wraith, couldn't resist a smirk as he replied, "Maybe. But until then, we'll keep teaching you lessons in chaos." As the last of the Zorthaxian ships vanished from radar, cheers erupted across Earth's command centers. The impossible had happened again. Humanity had survived. Later, back on the surface, Tyler and Ava sat on a rooftop overlooking the sunrise. "They'll come back," Ava said quietly. "Of course they will," Tyler replied, sipping a cup of coffee. "But next time, we won't just be ready, we'll be waiting." The Zorthaxians' retreat from Earth left the planet battered but not broken. Their threat still loomed heavy over humanity. Retreat didn't mean surrender. In every discussion Tyler attended, one conclusion became painfully clear: as long as the Zorthaxian High Command existed, Earth would never know peace. "We can't survive another attack," General Hartman said during a high-level strategy meeting. "The orbital grid is toast, the fleet's in shambles, and even the most optimistic projections give us months, not years, before they regroup." Tyler leaned forward, hands clasped. "Then we take the fight to them." The room erupted in protest. "Insane," Hartman barked. "You're proposing we attack their homeworld? With what? A few salvage ships and duct tape?" President Lin raised a hand, silencing the chaos. Her gaze locked on Tyler. "Commander, explain." Tyler tapped the holographic map, zooming out to reveal Velcris, the Zorthaxian fortress planet. It was a bastion of military might, ringed by orbital platforms, patrol fleets, and planetary shields strong enough to repel entire armadas. "Velcris isn't just their home, it's their power base," Tyler said. "If we take out the High Command, the whole Zorthaxian hierarchy collapses. Their fleets are so centralized they won't function without orders." "And how do you propose we do that?" Ava asked, arms crossed. "We're not going to beat them head-on," Tyler said. "We don't need to. All we have to do is break their command structure and make it look like they did it to themselves." Earth's remaining forces worked day and night to prepare the fleet. What emerged was an unconventional armada, a fleet of patched-up cargo haulers, retrofitted space stations, and a few experimental ships cobbled together in desperation. The centerpiece was the Wraith, the stealth ship that had already proven itself capable of infiltrating Zorthaxian systems. Tyler divided the fleet into 3 groups: a diversionary force to draw Zorthaxian attention, a decoy fleet to create confusion, and a covert strike team to land on Velcris and dismantle its defenses from within. "This is suicide," Hartman muttered as Tyler briefed the crews. "Yeah," Tyler agreed with a grin, "but it's our kind of suicide." The journey to Velcris was nerve-wracking. Every sensor ping felt like it might reveal the fleet to Zorthaxian patrols. But Tyler had anticipated this. The decoy fleet, comprised of ships emitting false signals, veered into Zorthaxian space, deliberately drawing enemy forces into a wild goose chase. By the time the main fleet arrived at Velcris, much of the Zorthaxian defense grid was focused elsewhere. "Showtime," Tyler muttered. The first phase of the operation was a direct assault on Velcris's outer defenses. The diversionary fleet, led by HFY, launched hit-and-run attacks on orbital platforms and patrol ships, creating chaos across the Zorthaxian command network. "What's their status?" Tyler asked over comms. Confused and angry, Ava replied, "They've pulled half their fleet to chase us." "Perfect. Keep them busy." While the diversion played out, the Wraith and its escort slipped past the weakened defenses, using cloaking technology and stolen codes to infiltrate Velcris's atmosphere. Velcris was as intimidating as the intelligence reports had described. Towering spires of obsidian-like material jutted from its surface, each bristling with weapons and sensors. The air was thick with metallic haze, and the skies were patrolled by squadrons of sleek Zorthaxian fighters. Tyler's team landed undetected in a remote canyon. Their objective was clear sabotage the planetary shield generator, paving the way for a full strike. "Keep it quiet," Tyler whispered as the team moved through the labyrinthine corridors of the generator facility. They encountered resistance almost immediately, Zorthaxian guards who fought with ruthless efficiency. But Tyler's team used guerrilla tactics, striking from the shadows and sowing confusion. As they planted charges on the generator's core, Ava's voice crackled over the comm. "We've got incoming. Looks like they finally noticed you." "Good," Tyler replied. "We're almost done here." The charges detonated with a deafening roar, and the planetary shield collapsed in a cascade of energy. Above Velcris, the diversionary fleet regrouped, launching a coordinated attack on the exposed surface defenses. In the chaos, the Wraith slipped into orbit, where Tyler initiated the final phase of the plan, broadcasting the virus designed to scramble Zorthaxian command protocols. As the virus spread, Zorthaxian ships turned on each other, mistaking allies for enemies. Ground forces received contradictory orders, and Velcris descended into chaos. Thalux, watching from his command center, was apoplectic. "How are they doing this? Where is our fleet?" An aide hesitated before replying. They're engaging each other, sir." What Thalux roared, slamming his claws onto the console. "Find the humans and destroy them." But it was too late. Tyler's virus had done its job, and the Zorthaxians were tearing themselves apart. As the last of Velcris's defenses crumbled, Tyler's fleet withdrew, leaving the once mighty Zorthaxian stronghold in ruins. Back aboard the Wraith, Ava turned to Tyler, shaking her head in disbelief. "We actually did it." "Yeah," Tyler said, leaning back in his seat. "And with any luck, they'll be too busy cleaning up their mess to bother us for a long time." On Earth, the victory was celebrated not with parades or speeches, but with quiet relief. The Zorthaxians, for all their bluster, had been humbled not by overwhelming force, but by humanity's ingenuity and refusal to play by the rules. As Tyler watched the sunrise from his balcony, Ava joined him with a cup of coffee. "You think they'll come back?" she asked. "Probably," Tyler said, smiling faintly. "But next time, they'll know better than to underestimate us."